All right. We are joined now by Steve Scalise, Republican of Louisiana. Congressman, great to have you here. It's three, I'm sure you know, but it's about 3 years ago, almost to the day, where you were gunned down on that ball field in Alexandria. Fortunately, Capitol Hill police were right there. I think they saved your life in part, along with some great physicians. How do you feel, sir, when you hear about defund the police? It's become a catchphrase almost overnight.
Yeah, Greg, it almost seems like, we're having two different debates here. And the idea that somebody would really suggest that. And look, I mean, there are true heroes out there. And I saw two of them firsthand, David Bailey and Crystal Griner, and what they did to risk their lives to protect others. All of us on that ball field that day would have been gunned down. And there was no doubt about it if they weren't there. Both of them got shot during the shootout and kept going at the shooter until they took him down, risking their lives for others. And that happens every day with law enforcement. Look, if there's bad apples, go root them out. And what we saw with George Floyd is clearly a case where the officer needs to be held accountable. All four officers will be held accountable. But to discount the heroic work of officers that also goes on to keep our community safe and protect innocent people, I got to see those heroes. I would not be here without those heroes, Greg.
I understand. Sir, we're looking at footage right now of looting, rioting, primarily in New York City. It happened across the country. But I want to ask you, Democrats and the media seem really, really focused on police misconduct. As you mentioned, virtually nobody in the country thinks Officer Chauvin should be out of jail. He's going to be put away for a long time, and that's appropriate. But I've seen a lot more misconduct from the rioters than I have from police. Not talking about the police in Minnesota in that one case, but I think the police, by and large, have done a great job. But your Democratic colleagues seem really committed to jamming in and rushing through so-called reform of the police.
Yeah, and there absolutely needs to be extra scrutiny on the Minneapolis Police Department. The leadership there hadn't confronted their problems, and it's long past time they do. But what about David Dorn? There ought to be a tribute as well to retired police captain David Dorn in St. Louis, who was gunned down in cold murder, just trying to stop looters out on the streets of St. Louis just a few nights ago. And, that concerns me as well, that happened. And there ought to be equal outrage.
Something the Democrats are talking about, and the technicals are a little bit boring, perhaps. But right now, if a police officer makes a mistake, deliberately or not deliberately, they generally can't be sued individually. The departments are sued, and damages can be awarded. Democrats are talking about, I think, getting rid of something called qualified immunity. Officers might have to pay out of pocket. Do you think that's good, or do you think they're onto something there?
Well, first of all, when we talk about reforms that are needed for police departments, why shouldn't we be working together? Why is it that Democrats wrote this bill on their own? They didn't try to consult with Republicans. And, there are a lot of people, Republican and Democrat, who want to confront this problem. And you have a lot of people with backgrounds that could be very helpful in doing this that they just chose to ignore because they wanted to do their own thing. But there is a lot of interest in solving this problem in a constructive way. And let's take it to that next step. Instead of people that just want to play political games with it.
Political games. And I think, the demonstration that we saw, Nancy Pelosi taking a knee, I thought it was for the cameras. I think that they're too involved in the imagery and not enough in substance. And from what you just said there, they're not consulting you. They're not consulting Republicans in any substantive way. What did you make of this scene?
Well, look, I mean, if you think about where President Trump has been on this from the beginning, he's been standing up against the real hateful and murderous actions of a police officer who crossed the line. And again, this is where the focus ought to be: is how do we stop that from happening again? And if they, Pelosi or whoever else she's working with wanted to really address that, they'd be working with the president. Who's been clear he wants to confront this. I mean, it was President Trump who did criminal justice reform when a lot of other people, including Speaker Pelosi, paid it lip service for decades. Joe Biden never tried to get that done. It was Donald Trump who got that done. And so here you got a president who wants to confront and address these problems. They should have been working with him. And it's not too late for them to do that.
You know, they're all taking a knee. They could have taken a pen. They are legislators. That's what they're supposed to do. And a very interesting point. Donald Trump has not been in Washington for very long at all. Very quickly, sir, forgive me, but Houma, Louisiana, on the Gulf Coast there, hit hard by a tropical storm. How are they doing? What do they need?
Well, you know, look, these are strong, resilient folks here, and we've been through a lot, you know, hurricanes, other kind of storms too. And, you know, the water came in pretty high. It was a tropical storm, so luckily the winds weren't of that, you know, true hurricane strength. But it's brought a lot of water, and the water is going to ultimately go out. And these are tough folks, and we're going to help them get back on their feet, just like they've done in years past.
And just like you did 3 years ago. Close call, but Congressman Scalise, so glad you made it through, and you look better than ever.
Greg, yeah.
Yeah, no,
hey,
seriously.
Look, God's been good. We, you know, we're all blessed, and let's just keep working to make this a better country every day, and let's fulfill that promise of that great shining city on the hill. I appreciate you having me with me, Greg.
Love it. Thank you, Congressman, very much. Steve Scalise, everyone, Republican of Louisiana. To be continued, sir. Good stuff. Good stuff. I remember where I was that day, by the way, 3 years ago when